I thought the summit would be like the end all. We got there and that was it. It was, but I really think reflecting back that it was the journey.
And here comes Melissa's favorite part. Welcome to Mixing Up Midlife, the weekly podcast for women in their 50s and beyond who want to explore this incredible age by being more adventurous and more curious. I'm Terri.
And I'm Melissa. And on this week's episode, we have a very special guest, Joanne McGinley. She's coming on a very special day, her 55th birthday. Yay! Woo-hoo. So we are having her on because Joanne, aside from being an amazing person and a good friend of mine, I'll add that as well. She is a former stay-at-home mom who craved a challenge. She started a fitness community. She opened a studio. She made it through COVID. Running this studio, she shared space with another fitness instructor. And then, because she needed more adventure in her life, when she hit 50, she started achieving some bucket list items. Now, we might call them bingo items, but this is Joanne's list today. And we are here because she just completed one significant item, and that is she climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. So Joanne, welcome. We want to hear all about this adventure. We want to hear why you decided to do this, how you did this. Pretty much you went out on your own and did this. So we want to understand how you came about doing that and just everything else you have to tell us. We are so excited to hear everything.
Absolutely.
In 30 minutes.
Yeah, in 30 minutes. So Joanne, welcome. Yeah, we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you, ladies, both. I feel privileged to be asked to come here and tell you about my trip. It was an adventure of a lifetime.
Joanne, happy 55th birthday. Major, major, major. You just came back from Kilimanjaro not too long ago, right?
Right. It's been less than a month.
You started this bucket list at age 50?
That's right. At 50, I decided I was going to start my bucket list and start thinking some things that I wanted to do, especially to challenge myself, even a few things that I was scared of. So
you're in the right place, my love.
Yeah, that's right. That's what you guys
we're
talk
all
about all the time.
It is. I mean, we started this off saying they were big ideas because bucket list had sort of the idea of, you're going to kick the bucket, and we don't want to think that way. So this is a great big idea. And if anybody's following along on the bingo card thing, yet another thing that you could add to your bingo card, which would be a really cool goal for you to accomplish, maybe not this year, but maybe in the future. Bring us back to the beginning. You own a fitness studio. What happened with that?
My friend Francine and I started teaching classes outside. We were stay-at-home moms. Our kids were growing up, going into elementary school. Anyway, we started grassroots fitness, and we started in the backyards. It kept expanding. We kept adding more classes. Eventually, I opened up my own studio, started hiring more instructors and adding more classes. And then we hit COVID. We made it through COVID. And then I decided not to continue with my own studio once my lease let up. Now I'm sharing space with a yoga studio in Vienna.
You do mostly weight, body resistance, that type of thing?
We do a lot of weight training, strength training. I call it strength training. I do offer a mobility class, which is very important for climbing Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
And also, I used to do yoga classes, but now that I'm teamed up with a yoga studio, I don't offer them anymore through Grassroots Fitness. Anybody who wants to take yoga can take them through Body Grace.
And Joanne, I think it's really great that you morphed the way you did, because when you were running that studio on your own, that was your life. Now you've morphed into this system. You're able to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. You're able to do some of the things on your bucket list.
Yeah, in some sense, because it used to be I had people to cover for me when I left and did things.
Oh, that's
but
true
now
too.
I don't. So this was the first time in 15 years I ever had to actually close the studio and didn't offer classes. So that was unusual for me. So even though we didn't offer strength training classes, those 2 weeks I was gone, a lot of the clients took other classes through Body Grace.
So you just answered a question that I was going to ask. You were gone for 2 weeks?
Right. Yeah. 2 weeks.
start us off on this journey. First of all, it was on your list.
Yeah. Turning 50 was the onus for me to like, okay, I'm going to start doing things that I've never done before. I'm going to put it out there. The very first thing I did was go skydiving. Like that was on my list.
Oh my God.
So I did that. And then I put climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and I actually put it out there to friends, but there was crickets when I said anybody wants to do it with me. So I just kind of said like, okay, I'm going to just do this. But what took me so long is I didn't have anybody else to go with me. And I was a little scared to go like completely by myself. I had it on my list. I already knew I wanted to go with Thompson Safaris. I just knew of them and had researched them. But then I was at a concert in Falls Church, and I was sitting with a woman who I had met before, who actually her husband went to college with my husband. And so I knew her, but not well. And I heard her say, I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. And I literally did a double take and went like, when? And she goes, January of 2024. And this was October of 2022. And I went, who are you going with? And she goes, well, my son is graduating from physical therapy school. So he and I are going together, and we're going with this organization called Thompson Safaris. And I know I lit up and I went, can I go with you? And luckily,
nice to meet you. Yes. My name's Joanne.
And she went, yes. And see, that was all I needed. I needed that one person to say they were going to go. And I had all that time to think about it. And to be honest with you, I hesitated. Like I said, I'm going to go. January of 2023, I had to put down a deposit. So I put a deposit down, but then you didn't have to pay the remainder until October of 2023. So I started to waffle a little bit in the summer because I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do this. It's 2 weeks. It's a big deal. I don't know anyone. I mean, I know Helen, but not well. And then I started to waffle. And then finally in October, I said, I'm going to do it. Like I literally said, Joanne, you are going to do this. And then I put the money down. Once the money was down, I was all set.
Sometimes it takes having that monetary commitment to really make that decision, right? Because you're like, I'm not going to lose this money.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you sign up for fitness classes.
That's right. You're going to go like, okay, now I've paid for it. I'm going to go. Oh yeah. That was the big onus for me on that one. Because there's no refund. I mean, they just tell you, there's no refund. So I was like, okay, now I'm doing it. And it's on my bucket list. So and of course, I'm glad I did, but it wasn't like an automatic decision for me. Like, I'm just going to go. I said I would, and that was part of it, putting it out there. But then people would ask. That's when I started to waffle a little bit.
You said you knew her, this woman, Helen?
Yeah.
Nancy?
Mm-hmm. I knew her a little bit. Helen. Yeah, Helen.
Uh-huh. Like Helen, Nancy, Patricia.
Helen, yes.
I'm just going to throw a name out, but you said you knew her just a little bit, but it wasn't like she was a close friend of yours and you were joining her in a way, but not really. So she was just like the crutch.
Yeah. And I also felt almost like a third wheel too, because she was going with her son. And I was like, okay, well, this is a mother-son trip. And I'm just kind of like the third wheel. I just needed that one person that helped me to really make the decision to go and know somebody to go all the way to Africa.
And we haven't brought up your family. So your husband was not into it.
No.
And that has not dissuaded you whatsoever. And he's fine with you doing it. Yeah. I like that.
Well, you know what's interesting about John? Like, I have a bucket list, but he doesn't. And he's cool with that. Some of the things we'll do together, which is the travel part of it, but more what I would call these adventure things. That's not what he wants to do. He has his own thing. So he's fine. In fact, I think he's probably relieved that I'm not like pushing him to come with me. He's more like, yes, you go do that. You go do your thing. So this was a big one. I was in a group of 16 people that then we split off into 2 groups, but there was only 2 couples in total in that group. Oh, everybody else was there with a buddy. I was the only one that I would say didn't have anybody that they knew well. So it was not like there's a lot of people that were coming with their spouses. And there was 4 women and 12 men. So there was a lot more men in our group than women.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's surprising to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but that's very surprising to me.
And were they international?
Thompson Safaris, they're based out of Massachusetts. And that was all American. But we were there climbing. We met people from all over the world. Mm-hmm. But we were all American, but from all over the United States.
Kudos to you for actually taking that leap of faith and not feeling super comfortable and doing it anyway, which is really, really hard. And I think gets harder as we age to leave that comfort zone and be scared, which
Right.
I always have to remind myself as much as I preach it. Oh, do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah. It's the doing.
Yeah.
How did you find the hike? Obviously, you're a fitness instructor. You're in amazing shape. Was it taxing? I have my neighbors across the street. They're so cute. They're now like 33, 34.
Mm-hmm.
But when they got married, they were in their late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, it was easy. It was like nothing. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Great. Good for them. I'm glad they felt that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to hear, the real deal here, not from a 20-something-year-old.
Yeah. So, okay, here's what I would tell anyone. It pays to train, to go on this trek. You will have a much better experience. Can you go and not train for months? Of course you can. We had some people in our group who exercised. Everybody prepared, but other people did a lot more. I actually prepared for it, and I had a great time. I was hoping I was in good shape for this, and I was, but I took it very seriously. I already do strength training, so I would totally recommend you do strength training. And then I started hiking. See, I love to hike. So in October, I really focused on starting to hike, and I did at least 1 or 2 hikes a week and wore my day pack, because you have to wear a day pack. And then I wanted to feel what that felt like. And then probably only about a month before I left, I got on the treadmill with my pack, put it on a high incline, and walked slowly, like at a 3 mile per hour at a really high incline with my pack. And I did that several times before I left. And I think that really helped me prepare for Kilimanjaro, because you're going through 5 climate zones. What we did is called the Western approach. And it was over 9 days, and we summited on the 7th day. So we were going up for 7 days, and then we came back down for 2. And of course, each day you're getting higher and higher in elevation and less oxygen and harder to breathe. So that was a big part of it.
What's the elevation? Do you know offhand?
You mean at the top, at the summit?
At the top.
Oh, yeah. It's 19,341 feet above sea level.
So you do know exactly.
No, exactly.
Yeah, once you do it, you know.
Yes. They telling you what it was. We were well aware of what we were, because it's a big deal, because it's the highest peak in Africa, and is actually one of the highest peaks of all the 7 summits that they talk about. That's a big deal to try to do the 7 summits, 1 on every continent.
Are the other 6 part of your bucket list?
That's what I was going to ask.
I don't know. I always say my bucket list is evolving. So I never just say I have just a bucket list, but I have things that will add, that I might add
that go in the bucket.
That go in the bucket. Yeah. So I never would say never, but that's not my focus right now. My son said to me, "Don't do Everest, Mom. Don't do Everest." And I said, I do not have any desire to do Everest. Maybe going to the base camp of Everest, like you can just go to the base camp. I could see myself doing that, but not climbing Everest. That's a whole another level.
You got to climb over the dead bodies. You don't want to do that.
And they're all melting, so they're being exposed right now. So you did not need oxygen or anything like that, like Everest.
And see, that's another reason why people like Kilimanjaro too. I was actually surprised to learn that they say 50% of the people don't make it. I don't know if that's still true, but we did see people come off the mountain. We saw somebody get picked up in a helicopter. We saw them come down in a stretcher. So it's not out of the realm. I mean, people do not make it to the summit, but it's more because of the altitude, I think, than a lot of them.
The 7 days up, you're taking your time because of the elevation gain to gradually get yourself accustomed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I will tell you that Thompson Safaris, one of the things they say, that's why I like this group, is that we have a 98% success rate. And that's part of it. You take your time going up. So we took 7 days to go up, and I know it helped. And 100% of us, of our 16, all made it. Now,
that's great.
And we had people that were getting altitude sickness. And we had one lady who she was in my separate group. She was part of the original 16, but then we separated into 7 and 9. And she was really pretty sick, but she still made it. And she was one of the younger ones, but I give her credit. She did it. But people got headaches. A couple of people were nauseous. We had one gentleman that had a hard time eating. So everybody handled it differently, but we all summited and got back down safely. That was a big deal. We were all very excited about that.
You said you had to carry a day pack. Did they ferry the tents and was it tent camping, or did they have base camps in certain places? What was your sleeping arrangements? What were your eating arrangements? Explain that to me.
Okay.
All the details.
I'll tell you, we slept in tents, slept in a sleeping bag. We had a little pad that we slept on, and it was cold, but we didn't have to carry our tent. I only had to carry a day pack, and a day pack carried my water. They wanted you to carry at least 3 or 4 liters of water a day. So you had to carry that. And then change of clothes, sunscreen, anything that you would need between the start of the hike and the time that you reach camp. And camp could be hours away. Every day was a certain amount of hours that we were actually hiking. So you had to have all that with you. But anything else, all that was carried by our porters.
God bless the porters.
Yes. And they work hard. Those porters are phenomenal.
To not have to carry your tent, your sleeping bag, your cooking.
I'm going to take some porters with me next time I go backpacking with my husband. That or llamas.
That's
llamas
called your
good
car, Melissa. That's called your car.
Yeah. At Kilimanjaro, you have to have porters. They don't let you just go and trek it by yourself. You have to have porters. But I have to say, they were amazing. I would watch videos and you won't believe how hard they work. We would start before them. They would take everything down. They would pass us on the way. And we would just get out of their way and just watch them go. And they had big packs on top of their heads and on their backs.
And by the time you got there, was it all set up?
Absolutely. It was set up.
Wow.
And then probably about, I don't know, the last 10 minutes out, sometimes the guys that would set up our tents would come and they would greet us and they would take our day packs for us. So that was kind of a nice thing that we didn't expect. We didn't know they were going to do that. They're like, okay, we're all packed up. We've got you all set up. And when we walked in, I opened up my tent. Everything was just there. And it all was. So that was really nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was one of your favorite moments from this trip?
I don't know if I have a favorite moment, but I will say this. I thought the summit would be like the end all. We got there and that was it. It was. But I really think reflecting back that it was the journey. It was the whole thing. When I think about making that decision, because I didn't know anyone, I really put myself out there to meet people and really get to know them. And we were really lucky that we had such a phenomenal group of people because they were all easygoing. We laughed a lot. We just had a great time. And I think that we'll probably always, I hope, always stay in touch and maybe do something else through the years. But I would say being on top of Kilimanjaro, there's nothing like it. And when I was flying home, we flew right over the top of Kilimanjaro and I took a video of that. I looked down and I freaking can't believe I was on top of that mountain. And you see it
what
from
an
the air.
accomplishment.
Thank you. I didn't know what to expect. I think a lot of it was mentally preparing for this too. I didn't shower for 9 days. That was a big one. I didn't wash my hair. I was wearing the same clothes over. That's a thing for me. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Joanne always looks perfect when you see her out.
Oh, please. And then, and of course we always wore hats. So that was a good thing too. It hit all that pretty hair. But I have to say that it's cold at night too. And see, that was my big fear, being cold. I didn't want to have cold hands because I always have cold hands and cold feet. And there were nights when I did have a hard time sleeping. Like these are all the things you can't really prepare for. You think you're going to be prepared for it. And then you're like, no, it's cold. It's loud because there's a lot of people. Your tents are this close. The guys next to me, I was always telling them like, I can hear you. I can hear everything's going on in there because they're always talking. And everybody else.
I was going to say, one of the few couples.
I didn't really hear them. I always heard like the two guys next to me always talking because they were just cutting up all the time and laughing. And they were the best. They made us laugh.
The cold is definitely something. And this is something that nobody told me until I experienced it.
Yeah.
If you have to pee and you're cold, it's worse. Your body is bringing blood to you.
Yeah.
Your pee warm, basically. And so it makes everything else shiver.
Yeah.
So you'll start shivering. The second you go pee,
you're
like, okay, I'm done. Why did I wait? But it's like getting out, going to pee. What a pain in the neck.
Oh, yeah. And you don't have a lot of privacy.
Well, I was going to say, if you have to pee in the middle of the night, I've done this and I don't go far from my tent in the middle of the night, but you had people next to you.
Yeah, you had to get up and go to we had a place to go, but during the day you had to pee and whatever you needed to do along the trail. and you had to find a
Right.
place that was private, we always said, we're going to go see the monkey. That's what our guide said. You're going to go see the monkey. So we have to go see the monkey. And they'd be like, okay, women, you go that way. Men, you go that way. So you hope that you all could have some privacy. And usually there was places, but there was a couple times when you got up higher on the mountain, you didn't have a lot of places to go have a little privacy behind. So I have to say, you got used to the elements and having to deal with them. And this is out of my comfort zone, way out of my comfort zone.
But that's a big moment of stripping things down, literally. But stripping things down and just going, it's okay. This is nothing compared to what you're doing. And everybody's feeling that way. So let me ask you about the training that you needed.
Okay.
You said you did training. You talked about the pack, but I don't know if we had started recording or not. You were talking about mobility.
Yeah.
And that you went through a lot of mobility exercises. So just talk a little bit about that part of it.
Right. I'm putting this on my YouTube channel too about how important mobility is. And I show some exercises to do. But one of the biggest things you have to think about is those are small tents. You can't stand up, right? You're bent over. So to get out of a tent, you've got to be low and then be able to get up higher to stand up. And a lot of that I did some things where I would squat and work on opening up my hips, like my hip mobility, making sure my hips were open. Even balance is really important. The strength is important, especially in your quads and glutes. But the mobility part, I think, is something people forget about. And I do it automatically because as I age, I want to be able to have that mobility, flexibility, but more mobility, I would say. But I realized it even more getting in and out of that tent because I didn't have as much problem. But boy, did I hear a lot of grunting from everybody, especially the guys next to me. They're like, oh. And then, of course, they're much taller than me. So they had longer legs, bigger bodies, and trying to go from, I can't do it because I'm sitting here, but you're crouching low and then you're coming up and standing up out of the tent. Yeah. You don't really think about that.
That's strong quads for that.
Yeah.
Even peeing.
Yeah, for sure.
A squat.
You got to squat. You got to have the squat balance. Yeah. These are all things that I better think about this before I go out and stay 9 days in a tent. I hadn't slept in a tent since my daughter was probably in 6th grade because we were in Girl Scouts, which was probably 10 years ago. Sleeping in a tent is not my natural thing. I was thinking about sleeping on the ground. I was like, I know this isn't going to be fun, but the in and out and just changing your clothes. I was the only one who was a single traveler in our 9 people. So I didn't have to share a tent. So in that regard, I was actually the lucky one.
It was palatial.
Yeah, you had the same size tent as everyone else?
Everybody else, you had double.
Nice. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
Well, I didn't have a choice. If you don't come with somebody.
They're not going to randomly.
Yeah, they don't randomly put you in with somebody.
Oh, God. Could you imagine?
Well, what's interesting, when I first signed up, I said, well, if there's another single person, I'll share with them. Because it does save you money.
In a tent that small?
Well, no. I'm telling you, this is what you don't know when you say these things. Because I'm thinking like, okay, well, this is going to save me some money because I'm sharing versus having my own. I have to pay more to have my own. And then there was just nobody available. But now that I did it, I'd be like, no. Like I would say to anybody, if you're going by yourself, get your own tent.
I camped with 2 of my girlfriends and we each have a 2-person lightweight tent, each of us.
Yeah.
Because we were like, we love each other. We do not want to sleep with each other. And Melissa and I, when we did our little overnight camping trip, it's like, we just need that moment. Yeah. I love Melissa. Melissa has probably seen more of me than anybody. She doesn't need to see me full on that way.
I'm just thinking about all my teammates because they got to know each other so well. I'm sure even though they were the best of friends, nobody's usually that close unless it's your spouse or somebody. And I was just they got closer to those people than they ever thought they would. I mean, you really bond over that. I say,
yeah, especially you had these 2, you said rather large, big guys next to you.
Yeah.
Sharing the same size tent as you. Yeah. They must have been a bit jealous.
I think they were wishing that they had gone like, why didn't we upgrade to a bigger tent and or just get our own tent? But you don't know what you don't know until you get there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Joanne, you mentioned your YouTube channel. So tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel. Our listeners can go and see some things from Kilimanjaro?
Yeah. So my YouTube channel is Grassroots Fitness. And I have on there, in addition to workout videos, I've now added what to pack when you go to Kilimanjaro. And part of what I put in there is what they don't put on the packing list that I found very beneficial. There's things that on your list, and then there's other things you realize that you need that's not on those lists. And then I did a day by day what we did. Sometimes I'm talking as we went up the mountain, but mostly it's a montage of videos and photographs that I put together to just kind of show, like, if you want to know what day 1 through day 9 is like on the Western route, which is what we did, you can see it through my eyes and my camera.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Super
I'm so
helpful.
excited because as I was telling Terri, I said, Joanne would be a great guest because I knew she just climbed Kilimanjaro, but I haven't seen any pictures of it. I haven't seen video of it. And you were mentioning that, it's a little obvious, but you were not in cell range. You weren't able to share anything while you were there.
Yeah.
Was that a shock too? I know when I go into the wilderness, always in the back of my mind is like, what's happening when I'm completely offline?
And things happen.
Yeah.
Things do happen.
I did tell my family, basically, I was like 99% sure I wasn't going to be able to be in contact with them. But our guides had a satellite phone. And it's just interesting. They did put cell service on Kilimanjaro, which is fascinating to me, but none of the US didn't work. It had to be the Kilimanjaro one. So I said, if you don't hear from me, that's a good thing. If somebody's getting in touch with you, that's not good. And also,
right.
I said, and that's the same thing. If I shouldn't hear from you, unless there's if there's an emergency, you can get hold of me. But otherwise, I'll assume everything's okay. That was hard, being off the grid. So I was a little concerned about that, but I actually enjoyed having no access. It was like, I have no idea what's going on in the world. I have no idea what's happening. And it was actually very free.
Melissa's had that experience every year. I've had that experience maybe several times. I went on a 10 rafting trip where there was no cell service anywhere. And it was so nice.
Yeah.
We had just moved to a new house, though, and I felt a little bad about that because I'm sure things were like on fire here. Not literally, but figuratively. We moved in 3 days later. I was like, see ya.
So, Joanne, with that in mind, you don't have to tell us everything on your bucket list, but do you have anything similar to that on your bucket list that is a off-the-grid big adventure or...
Actually, right now, no, but I do think I will. Helen and I haven't talked, but we're going to meet up because I said, I kind of feel down. You think about it for so long and you're planning with it for so long. And then when it's over, you're like, oh, what am I going to do now? Like, I feel like I need something else. I'm actually not, and that's not on my list immediately, but I am going to start taking tango lessons. That's what I'm hoping to do next. As my talk about out of my comfort zone. That's going to be out of my comfort zone.
Back to your list, you have certain things on your list, right? Do you have a list of 10 things or 15? I know you said it's ever evolving.
My main things were basically skydiving, Kilimanjaro, and just travel in general. We want to see as much as we can of the world over the next, as long as, the years that we're still here. But the big things like, I'm going to go do something that's physically challenging, that I don't know yet. There's things I want to do, but I mentioned it to my husband, and now I think he might be more on board, where before he wasn't as on board.
So he heard about your adventure, and is he kind of wishing he did it, or
no? I don't think he wished he did it, but I think he's now thinking maybe I could do some of these things that I'm now thinking about, like Monte Picchu. And when I first said that to him, he wasn't that interested, and then I brought it up again because, again, I'm always thinking a year or two ahead, and that's probably in the next year or two. I want to do that. And then he kind of went, well, maybe I'll do that. So he might be more inclined to do that now.
Are you a planner by nature?
Yes.
I was going to say, there you go.
Because I'm like, if it interests me, yes. I already have I'm going on this bicycle trip in September with these ladies. Because this was on my bucket list, but I forgot. We did Cumberland to DC, and now we're going to do Cumberland to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh or vice versa.
We want to do that too.
Yeah. So again, we did it 4 or 5 years ago, and we always said we're going to finish it, and we have it. So I said, okay, this is the year. We're going to finish it. So yes, I've already got that planned for September. And if I do another big, I'm going to say financially, I always have to think ahead because a lot of these trips the bigger ones are expensive. So I was like, if we
That's
do
true.
Monte Picchu or something like that, I got to think about when that might be in 2025 and how much money is that going to cost and how many days and all that kind of thing. Because 2 weeks was a big deal for me to be away. That's another thing. I've never been
Yeah.
away for 2 weeks.
That interests me so much because my husband and I love traveling. We
Mhm.
love traveling together, but he likes city exploration,
Mhm.
museums, and walking through cities and tasting the food and soaking in
Yeah.
the culture, which I love as well.
Right.
But there are other things that I would love to do that I don't think he would want to do. But 2 weeks for me is a really long time. I got invited to go rafting down the Grand Canyon. It was 3 weeks
Oh, wow.
without my husband.
Yeah.
That's a really long time to
Yeah.
be without my husband.
Yeah.
2 weeks, that's a long time to be without your partner. Did you find that there was like a little part of you going, God, I really wish he was here?
Not that I didn't wish he wasn't there with me. I didn't have any longing. And I think it's because I was so busy. Like you're always doing something or preparing for the next day. And I feel like you didn't have a lot of downtime to even really think about it. And also, I think because this isn't my husband's interest, he was less
Yeah.
interested in it. Does that make sense? Am I articulating
Yes.
that right? It's like
Absolutely.
he's not asking me 100 questions about it, like what happened, what'd you do? He was happy to hear a little bit of a brief overview. But people that are really interested, like you're thinking you might do this, they want to know like the details of it.
I totally get what you're saying.
So probably what the thinking was, God, he would be hating this right now or something like that.
Oh, I don't think he would have enjoyed it. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think it's his thing. I think he has other interests, and being out in the middle of nowhere on a mountain, it is cold and you can't sleep well and all that kind of stuff.
No,
That's not his
my
thing.
husband would have been tapped out on that. Like the second you said cold, no, gone. He's gone. But it's such a great thing to be able to do to separate from your spouse
Mhm.
and do your own thing. And my husband's always encouraging me to do these things. Like the 3-week trip, he was like,
Yeah.
go do it.
Yeah.
It's me. Like
Mhm.
I'm holding myself back. I love that you did not hold yourself back.
Yeah.
I think it's a bravery that I have not yet established
Mhm.
within myself.
Yeah.
And that's a takeaway from this trip. Do you have any other takeaways that you might tell other women who might think about doing a trip without really knowing anybody or without their spouse or partner or a friend or going to a foreign country? Any takeaways? Would love to hear them.
We're in midlife. Now more than ever is the time to do something that's been holding you back. It's time. What are you waiting for? How much longer are you going to wait to do things? If I had not been by myself, I probably wouldn't have met as many people or had as many deep conversations that I had with them or got to learn about them as much because I would have been distracted always talking to my friends or my spouse. And it's not like I couldn't have had a great time. You just had a completely different experience. And for me, it gave me so much more self-confidence to do something else like this. I was happy that I had Helen there. It's not like I didn't know anyone. I was very thankful to have her, but I do think it's completely different experience. And I would encourage anybody, if you're thinking about it, don't hold back because you don't have any friends at this point in your life who would do that with you. If you want to do it, go do it. I could still be here and never have done this trip if I waited for somebody to say, I'm definitely want to do it. This was the time for me. And when I told John that, I said, I could wait. He goes, don't wait, go. Because you just don't know. I feel like now I have the self-confidence. If I did that, there's so many other things I feel like I could do now.
I think that's amazing advice. And I think we should all learn from your experience. It seems like people who don't do it regret it. And I've never heard of someone doing an adventure like this and saying, I regret doing it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's true for a lot of things, right? At least try it. I mean, that's what you two are all about. Midlife, get out there, do it. Have your adventures. Don't be scared to do things.
You bet.
Yeah,
you
at least try it.
Joanne, where can everybody find you?
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at Grassroots Fitness. I'm on YouTube, Grassroots Fitness, and I'm on TikTok. And I think it's Grassroots Fit. Anytime you look up Grassroots Fitness, I should be on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And of course, my website is grassrootsfitness.org.
This has been amazing. I cannot thank you enough for coming on, talking about Kilimanjaro, talking about what it took you to get you there. I mean, you did a really brave, cool thing. I love it.
If your listeners ever have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I never talked to somebody directly, but it helped to learn and see what other people did and went through. To anytime you do something like this, it always helps. So happy to do it. Thank you both so much.
Because I think some of our listeners might be in that group that would want to do. We have some solo travelers. We talked about that a lot. So we might have the audience that might take you up on it.
Okay. So. Wonderful. I look forward to it.
All right.
All right. Thanks, ladies.
As always, you can find us on Instagram at Mixing Up Midlife. You can leave us a voicemail on our website, mixingupmidlife.com. You can find Melissa on embarked photo on Instagram. Sometimes find us on TikTok. And definitely take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. We would really appreciate it. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks again, Joanne.
Bye, ladies. Thanks.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.